Okay, so the final thing that we want to do for Truffle here in order to deploy our Tether Solidity contract is that we're going to want to name our migrations.js files so that they matter and match with what Truffle.js expects, or what the standardization would be. So basically, the run migrations file where we actually run our migration and deploy that is the initial one. It's going to be checking that. Then we do our deploying. So we're actually going to rename run underscore migration or run dash migration to one underscore initial underscore migration. And deploy contract is the second step. So we're going to rename this to underscore display to underscore deploy underscore contract. And there's actually one last thing we want to do. Let's go back to our migrations.sol, and we're going to rename set completed underscore to set completed set camel case completed, like this. And we're going to do the same thing over here, upgraded dot set completed. Now, why are we doing this? Well, here's the thing. What we're doing here essentially is that we're setting up the contract migrations ourselves manually. But what we could have done, actually, instead of writing everything from scratch, I know we could have saved some time doing this, is back in the terminal, we could have actually just, here, let me just make a new tab. Back in the terminal, we could have actually just run truffle initialize. And this actually would have initialized our Truffle configuration file. It would have initialized our initial migration, but I thought it would be interesting to actually write it all out and go over the logic together, so it's just this default. But the reason why I'm stopping now and coming back and changing the set completed, it's to show you that even though we can write out this, what's actually happening here is that Truffle, when we run Truffle migrate like we're about to do after we compile, it's going to search for the default. So it's actually going to search for set completed like this, camel case. So if we were to write this out ourselves, we have to be careful. We have to be careful that we write it out in a way that Truffle migrate can find it. So it's not going to be able to find set underscore completed, just like it won't be able to find certain other files when it's looking, because it's looking for a specific set of information. All right, so that's the last thing. I just wanted to show you that. So make sure to change it to set camel. We're ready to go ahead and compile. So we're going to go back to our console, make sure that we're in the DeFi staking app. And the first script that we want to run is Truffle Compile. And this is going to compile our contracts. So let's hit enter. Okay. Now after this, we're going to run Truffle migrate, and we're going to do our first migration. Okay, so let's take a look at what we see here. Well, we see the initial migration JS, and you may not, and we have our deploy contracts as well. All right. And so we see that we should have a cost for ETH, so that if you successfully deployed this now, if you go into Ganache, you should see that your balance has gone down. Now, my balance has been going down because I've been using this account for various other things and testing out the course. And we see that we have our Tether up here, and there's a contract address created for Tether as well, ending in 3460. So this is actually our smart contract address. We have our block number, we have a timestamp, and we have the account number that it was deposited from for the transaction. And this account number, you see that ends in 051CA. If we go into Ganache, matches here, 051CA, the address. It matches the first address, which is what we're setting to the owner. So this means that we have successfully, so yours should be matching your account if you check it out. And if you're seeing this and it matches, then congratulations, because we've successfully compiled the first part of our smart contract. Now I know it's just a shell, and there's nothing really in our Tether, contract yet besides the total supply and the name and symbol, but we're going to keep on adding to it. And additionally, another way for us to actually test and see that we're up and running with our smart contracts on the blockchain is by using our Truffle console to interact live with our smart contracts up on Ganache. And we can do that actually by here. We create a new tab in our console and we can run Truffle console. And this is going to load us into a console mode where we can actually fetch information and data from the blockchain. So what I'm going to do first here is I'm going to set tether equal to a wait. So remember, it's the blockchain, so we have to wait for the information to process here of camel case tether dot deployed. And we're going to receive undefined because that's just what it's sending back. But don't worry, be set up to the deployment of our contract tether so that if I call tether now by typing in tether, and there you go. So let's take a look. Here we see our tether. Here we see all of our information for our tether. Now there's a lot on here, I know, but we can call upon different information using JavaScript. If we want to get the name of what tether is, for example, instead of searching through here, we can just do tether.name and we can actually call the function. And we see the name, mock tether token. And if I go back to Visual Studio Code and I go to tether to our contract Solidity, we're going to see name mock tether token. And there's something else that you should notice before we conclude this video. And maybe you noticed it already, but if you haven't, if you take a look on the left side, you're going to see that we have a new folder. And what's this folder? Well, this is the Truffle ABIs. Remember, in our Truffle configuration, we set up our contract to build the directory for the Truffle ABIs. And what this is our JSON. So we've got the migration JSON of our contract to migrate and update information. And we have our tether JSON, which we're going to be also leveraging for our front end, for the front end part of our building for this application. So this JSON was spat out when we compiled down and migrated our smart contracts on the console. And every time that we change our contracts, our JSON is going to be updated when we recompile and upgrade the information accordingly.